All right, Mrs. Ford, are you ready?
Yes.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll?
Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman McClendon,
Here.
Dr. Highlander,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Perez,
Here.
Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Sermon,
Here.
Miss Tidmore, Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here, sorry.
All right, have a couple of requested amendments to our agenda tonight. One would be to add Keith Bowman to our delegations. The other would be add item, under item Roman numeral 11, we would add item B, a contract for consideration for desk partitions. To have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Sermon,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, now we'll have our pledge to the flag and our meditation that is going to be brought to us tonight by Miss Ursula Green, principal of Hickson Elementary School.
Good evening. Again, my name is Ursula Green, and I serve as the proud principal at Hickson Elementary School, and this evening I have brought Ms. Meiselman with me. I really just wanted to share with you all an experience that we had at Hickson Elementary School. In December of 2018, we actually had a tragedy. One of our teachers passed. So it was right before Christmas break. Our students went home. Teachers went home. One day I was in the building and I decided it was time to go to her room and it was time to start collecting some items, to give to her family members, and really just get the room ready for the interim teacher who was coming in. I felt that was the right thing to do. So as I was collecting some of her belongings, it was amazing. She didn't have a lot of things, a lot of her pictures posted up in the room. It was all about her children, which is what we are about. So I collected her things. She had a lot of reading glasses, pictures of her children, some items that her students had given to her. So I put them in a nice box and eventually passed them on to her family. But as I was in her room cleaning, I found a letter. And I want to share that letter with you all tonight. Keep a clear eye toward life's end. Do not forget your purpose and destiny as God's creature. What you are in His sight is what you are and nothing more. Remember that when you leave this earth, you can take nothing you have received, but only what you have given. A full heart enriched by honest service, love, sacrifice, and courage. I have no idea when this teacher wrote this letter. I have no idea what she was thinking, what was on her heart, what was on her mind. But once I found it, I knew it was important for me to keep, and I shared it with the staff. I made a copy, and I gave the original to her husband. Moving forward, this summer I had an opportunity to talk with Mr. Ziegler, who's the principal at Hickson High School. He called and asked if I would be interested in collaborating with him and Dr. Rogers, the middle school principal, on a rebranding for Hickson, for the Hickson Theater pattern. I said yes. I was very happy that he included me in that. It was a really neat process. We worked with someone out of California, actually. So we got new logos, just all new rebranding for our 3 schools. One brand or one logo that really struck us was the saying, "Leave your mark." I came back to this letter, only what you have given. So tonight, I come to challenge you, to our board members, really just to ask you, how will you leave your mark? Will it be through acts of honest service? Will it be through love? Will it be through sacrifice? And will it be through courage? Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I do want to say thank you to Ms. Meiseman, who joined us tonight. I know you all were facing this way, but she actually signed the pledge for us. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Next, we'll have our exemplars of excellence. We're going to recognize Mr. Kobe Rivers.
Good evening. I have the opportunity and privilege to introduce to you an incredible young man named Kobe Rivers. Kobe is a student at Brainerd High School and is a part of the Aviation Institute at Brainerd. You may have seen recently that Kobe actually was awarded a scholarship in which he has the opportunity to earn his pilot's license. And I'm going to read this from a press release that was done because I think it's so great. It says that Kobe did not let the pandemic delay his work. He has already completed his first solo flight and is on course to finish his private pilot certificate by the end of the school year. He's also accepted to Middle Tennessee State University, where he will enroll this fall in the school's aerospace program with an emphasis on commercial pilot study. And I'm going to let Kobe speak to you. I also want to recognize the principal, Mr. James. Mr. James, I'm going to ask you to come up and just say anything you want to say about Kobe, and then we'll allow Kobe to share some words with you tonight. Yeah.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a proud moment as a principal, but to know this young man, it's really a proud moment in my heart. Kobe Rivers is one of those students that we have seen blossom over the last 3 years. And what I mean by blossom, he found his niche at Brainerd High School, and aviation was his niche. And it birthed in him a dream that he already had, but it made him pursue it with so much tenacity. And so we're proud as a Brainerd Panther family, where we're striving for excellence and we're committed to growth. And this is one of our models of what we mean by striving for excellence. So everyone, please listen attentively to my Kobe Rivers, because that's what he is until May. But I want to definitely introduce our student, Kobe Rivers, to you.
First and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. John Naylor for making this possible for me and any other student at Brainerd High School that decides to follow behind me in pursuing the career of aviation. I would also like to thank Mr. Adam Skills and the Future Ready Institute at Brainerd High School. This Future Ready Institute changed my life because it made me do a whole 360 and reroute my whole life. I believe that this program has made my future, and any kid that decides to follow behind me and stay committed and dedicated, very bright. I'd like to thank the teacher at Brainerd High School, who was one of the best, Mr. Grady Nace. Mr. Nace has been the best mentor throughout this whole process that I've went through, and made sure that I stayed on track throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Taylor and Crystal for offering me the opportunity and turning my dreams into the reality.
Kobe, I told you this earlier, but, and I say this to everybody when I talk about you, the magnitude of what you have done is amazing, and it is going to change and has already changed the trajectory of your life. You have moved mountains already. I cannot wait to see you in the air. Maybe I'll catch you on a flight, Delta. You remember me, okay? But we are very, very proud of you here at Hamilton County Schools. We are very, very proud of you in District 5. And the sky is, of course, clearly beyond the limits for you, okay? Congratulations.
Thank you all. Congratulations, Kobe. All right, that brings us to our delegations portion of our agenda. If you would, please give your attention to Mr. McClendon. You might want to wait for them to step in.
I couldn't hear back there.
Hang on, he's gonna go right yet.
We have Ms. Willard, Ms. Omarkel, and Mr. Bowman. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If you are criticizing individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. Please continue. If you continue to criticize individual employees, or if your remarks are in error or becoming repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. You may begin when you are ready.
I apologize. I really couldn't hear me. This is so loud, and I am so short. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you again. Before I speak to my current topic, I do want to thank Dr. Johnson for hearing our concerns the last time and adjusting the phase tracker to allow more students to be in person in our K-8 grades earlier than anticipated. Yesterday was the first time since Thanksgiving that all K-12 students were able to be in the schools at the same time, and that progress is much appreciated, and we thank you. However, now our students and families are facing an additional hurdle to remain in the school. The COVID rapid testing pilot program that has been implemented into the schools will drive the numbers back up and affect a widening circle of staff, students, and families. All the data has determined children to be the population least susceptible to COVID. Local, state, and national numbers consistently show the under 18 population to have the lowest prevalence rate. Based on national data, Hamilton County schools should only see 1 COVID case daily out of 48,000 students. Let that sink in. 1 case daily out of 48,000 students. Consider the crucial fact of these rapid tests and their high false positives in low prevalent populations like children. For every 3 symptomatic kids tested, 2 of them will be a false positive. 2 students will now be told to isolate, and this will in turn affect their close contacts, who are tested despite being asymptomatic, which in turn causes additional false positives. Their close contacts are now affected, and the situation keeps compounding. You are now affecting students and families who did not consent. Our students will be facing increased ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, traumatic events, that will carry consequences well into adulthood. There's a tremendous cost that we're subjecting our healthy students to when it comes to this rapid testing program. First, there's the cost of learning loss. Quarantined students are forced into virtual learning despite being healthy. The last 2 months of virtual learning has reinforced the negative academic effects of students in our district. Students have already lost valuable learning time, despite the prevalence of student illness being low. In-person instruction is now being considered a privilege. Students have to suffer the consequences of being removed and isolated, even though the Tennessee Department of Health has affirmed that these tests have a high rate of unreliability. Students have to earn the privilege to return to schools by abiding by a set of policies that target them unnecessarily. Students are now being conditioned to see themselves as dangerous. You put up shields and educate them to stay away from each other. Relationships are to be treasured, and yet the isolation caused by your measure and propagated by false positive tests are instilling a strong perception of fear of getting too close to classmates and friends. The loss of rewards and time and effort investments will be another cost of this program. We saw it in schools where teams were forced to abandon championship goals based on one athlete's test result. That may very well have been a false positive. You offer the students hope that they will be able to achieve a goal or a dream, only to take it away for an unreliable test result. You have now turned teammate against teammate, and parent against parent, and community member against community member. This one student is subjected to an onslaught of negative behavior by peers and adults for a test that has a high rate of false positives. The ensuing trauma will increase the ACE score for that child. This situation also leads to the next cost, the increased rate of suicide. The policy of quarantining and isolating healthy students has quadrupled suicide among children. Some districts are seeing 10 suicide attempts per month. Children are accepting guilt from loss of athletic events, family contact, and even family deaths. Children do not deserve that burden, and many have tried to eliminate the pain caused by that guilt. They don't know how to cope when their tests become positive despite a lack of symptoms. They don't know prevalence. They just know, I'm not sick, but my test says I'm positive, and now grandma or granddad is dead. But what if this test was a false positive? Our children are suffering mental health crises from these unreliable tests, and you are continuing to push our children to the edge by now offering testing in the school setting, thereby endorsing the validity of the test. Schools are low-risk environments, and the rapid testing program should be eliminated in our district. The cost is too great. The ACE score will continue to increase, brought on from the overuse of unreliable tests that will damage our students now and in the future. Any COVID-related death is a tragedy, but student suicide is a result of your policy decisions. Stop torturing our students and families with unreliable tests and policies that target them unfairly. Remove the COVID testing program from our schools and allow our children to remain in the safest environment for their health and academic progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Omarkel.
Tennessee's low funding with neighboring states. Mississippi is the only state we're ahead in per pupil investment. The state is the cause for bottom 5 funding. Throughout the South, state governments are majority funders of education. Tennessee is a minority funder. Inadequate state funding is the failings of the basic education program known as the BEP. Let's be clear, the BEP is starvation funding. No school system can run on what the BEP generates because no system does. It's why bragging about fully funding the BEP is meaningless. The BEP is a law and a formula developed and amended over several decades. BEP components are based on the number of students, or average daily membership known as ADM. The state pays for only 70, 75, and 50% of different components in the BEP. Currently, the BEP generates about $7,400 per student. The BEP also looks at local fiscal capacity, the ability to generate local revenue, and adjusts what portion of the $7,400 stack will be state dollars and what must come from local governments. Some counties, like Davidson and Sevier, are required to pay up to 60% of the $7,400 stack of BEP dollars. No school system can run on $7,400 per student because no school system in Tennessee does. That means every local government adds additional funds to meet the needs of their local school systems. Some rural counties add less than 10%, while other local governments add more than 40% to their local school budgets to supplement the BEP. The BEP is demonstrably inadequate, yet focus on the BEP, rather than its overall failings, is a major reason why the state contributes only 46% of K-12 funding. Clearly, the state can and should do more for K-12 funding. The state is awash in revenue, with $3 billion available to budget. In fact, the state has been awash in revenue for years, generating 4 times more revenue surplus than increases in K-12 funding. One way to increase K-12 state funding is to decisively improve all the BEP components. An easily understood goal is to meet the funding levels of our neighbors. To meet Alabama level funding requires $560 million this year. To meet Kentucky's level of funding requires $2.6 billion. The BEP is starvation funding. No school system can run on it, and even then, the state only pays a portion of the BEP. The state has the revenue to get us out of the bottom 5. We have $1.5 billion in new revenue for next year and $7.5 billion in current cash reserves. Education is our best investment. It's time to have the governor and General Assembly know it.
As you can see from this video, the state isn't doing their part, in our opinion. Our funding is based on a flawed system. Tennessee is in the bottom 5 in per pupil spending, but in the top for excess revenue. Tennessee is 46th in the country per pupil spending, and just a few years ago, we had moved from 44th to 42nd. We are going in the wrong direction. It is not an issue of lack of available revenue. The state calculates education spending on $7,400 per pupil, which is not the reality with what it costs to educate our children. Hamilton County spends $9,250 per pupil. and is still behind the state average by $167 per pupil, or about $7,682,000. Hamilton County is required to pay 48% of the $7,400, and all of the remaining of the $1,850 per pupil is currently cost to educate our children we have to pay. We are at this time paying about 56% of the actual cost per pupil to educate our children. We are expected to contribute significantly more than the districts around us. We need to work together to move the state to adequately fund our district. As you heard, the state has 4 times the amount of revenue surplus than increases in state education funding. They have $7.5 billion in current cash revenues, and in January, as you see on the paper, they had $380.1 million more than they budgeted for from last year. We are asking that the Hamilton County School Board actively support the need for the state to provide adequate funding for our district. We need the governor and the General Assembly to invest adequately in public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Mr. Bowman or Bachman? Bowman.
And I heard your disclaimer earlier, and I want to make sure that I don't violate any of the rules. So if I do, would you please let me know so I can stop. Today, my name is Keith Bowman. I'm from Single Mountain, and today we had some inclement weather up on Single Mountain, and one of our school bus drivers commented on this matter on social media. And to my understanding, that school bus driver was today terminated. From what I understand, he's a subcontractor for a contractor that works for Hamilton County. I think if this alleged story is true, I believe that his freedom of speech was infringed upon. And I would ask that this board do what they can to please look into it. Mr. McKinney, I stand up here for him because he is a pillar in our community. He's well known in our community, and it goes well beyond him driving a school bus. He's a man of integrity, and his soul is pure, and he loves these kids. And when he commented on social media today, he had the kids' best interest at heart. He always has the kids' best interest at heart. He also works for me as a baseball umpire. He gives to these kids. You know how many times he's ever asked me for money to be paid for this job? Never. Never. He gives of himself all the time, selflessly, to our community. And our community loves him. His termination today hurt our community. It hurt him. It hurt our community. I'd like you to take this under advisement. Do what you can to please investigate it. And hopefully, maybe an injustice will be undone. Thank you.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Sure. So I think we've all received a lot of emails today about this situation. And, I just want to state, just for your reference, and just like I've been emailing back, the number of people that have emailed us about it, he was not an employee of ours, as you know, so therefore we don't have a lot of insight into the situation. But I was just hoping maybe Dr. Robertson could better explain, the situation. I don't even know why this gentleman was fired, or if what was put on Facebook is accurate. So I have such little context, but also can we even do an investigation on this? Like, if you could just add some color, that'd be helpful.
So I know you guys received a lot of emails, as I did today, about this situation. So I sent an email to you just prior to the start of this meeting, trying to bring some clarity to a pretty complex situation. As you know, our bus contract, we contract with First Student. They service about 2/3 of our routes. The other third is serviced by legacy employee drivers. Those are drivers that have been around with city, county schools prior to the merger. And then we have a number of what we call contractor drivers. Those contractors can own one or multiple routes. So for the routes that they own past one, they work off of an approved sub list. So the county, our transportation director, goes through the process of, just like we would with anything, background checks, make sure safety process, they've got the right license, and they approve a contract sub driver list. From that list, contractors pull drivers and fill the additional routes for those drivers. Contractors have under our memorandum of understanding with them, have the ability to pick who they choose to service those routes. The only person that has, I say this, I guess technically the board would, but right now the Director of Transportation approves the sub list, and he's the only person that removes anyone from that sub list. So the idea of someone being fired is technically not correct. The contractor can choose not to use sub-driver A, but that doesn't mean that other contractors within the county can't choose that driver. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a pretty complex situation. So essentially what you could have is a contractor saying, for my second of 3 routes, I'm going to choose another driver from the sub list.
So he's not fired, he's just not gonna be used by the contractor for that particular route, but he could drive a bus in one of our districts or something, right? He has a job, is my question. Does he have a job? Is he still on the list?
If another contractor chooses him to drive a route or to pick up, someone gets sick or they're having a hard time filling another route, or like we've done in the past, if first student can't fill routes and we put him out there to another contractor, then absolutely, he is still on the sub list.
Okay, but he's not driving the route for the children that are wondering where he was today.
That's correct, because that route is owned by the contractor.
Hang on a second. Mrs. Robinson, did you?
Well, I just wanted to be clear, in our contract with the contractor, in our MOU, we cannot dictate who they hire and let go as far as subcontractors go. All we can do is say you can only pull from the people that are on our subcontractor list. So legally, we cannot dictate.
That's correct, Ms. Robinson.
Perfect.
And if I could maybe suggest, since this really is something that's between the contractors and their employees.
Absolutely, yeah.
We should probably tread lightly by even discussing this, because there are probably things that we, sitting here today, don't know.
Yeah, so all I want to do is make it clear that, as much as we appreciate everyone advocate, because I think it's phenomenal that he's such a part of your community, we are contractually not even in a position to dive into this or investigate the situation other than what we know and what we are legally bound to as far as our relationship with contract drivers. So I wanted to make sure that was relayed to you, or in general to the public, because we've received so many calls and emails about it today.
He's just done so much for our community, I felt obligated to advocate for him here.
Absolutely.
Dr. Highlander, did you?
Just very, very brief question. Is the gentleman works for a small contractor, not for a student, is that correct? Okay, so he just, and that small contractor would have the ability to use him or not to use him, but he still is remaining in our sub-pool and someone else could use him.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us next to a future ready presentation. Mr. Blake Freeman.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to address today our Future Ready 2023 monthly update. And just as a reminder, Hamilton County Schools will be the best district in Tennessee, and also that we want to create pathways to bright futures for all students by equipping them with skills, knowledge, and supports required to realize their full potential. As you're well aware, in the strategic plan, there are 5 key areas, and today I'd like to address future-ready students. And specifically, I'd like to share with you an update around graduation framework, acceleration of early post-secondary opportunities, future-ready institutes, as well as the new HCS micro college, just to give you a brief on that. So to start off with our graduation framework, we'll start off with a reminder that we have a target that 90% of our students who enter into high school in the 2019 cohort will graduate by the summer of 2023. A good note is that our class of 2020 graduated at an 87% rate, and so that is the highest graduation rate for Hamilton County Schools since 2012 and 2013. And I think it's exciting to say that in a very tough ending of the year, that's a great thing to celebrate. However, when we look at our graduation rate progress, we're becoming a little stagnant when we take a look at how we're continuing to try to increase. And so we tried to take some steps to how can we continue to increase that to make it to that 90% mark by our goal. So one thing that we believe is the conversation around graduation and the importance of graduation has to start well before students get into high school. And so we are already standing up some events that are occurring and some opportunities in elementary school through college and career days and career awareness lessons. In addition, in middle school, we continue to make accessible our Canvas course called Future Ready Prep that's delivered by the school counselor, as well as college days. U Science, we have all 8th grade students take the U Science assessment, and what that does is it measures not only their interests, but also their potential, which is extremely important, especially for students who may not have a large library of knowledge about what all future careers are out there. And then we also hosted our Get Future Ready event. So last year we hosted this event at the Trade Center, and we were all together, and it was a collection of high school institutes and school choice options, as well as higher ed and people from the business community. Obviously, this year we had to pivot, and so we had a great relationship, still have a great relationship with the Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce, and we made that event virtual. So we actually had 2,500 unique 8th grade student logins to this 1-hour event in which students could log in and engage with high school students around the institutes and learn a little bit more about some pathways for high school. There's some high school actions that we are taking. We convened a group of high school teams and rolled out to them a graduation framework. We have also have the ability now through Cognos to really track some really nice data around where are students when they're entering into 9th grade, and how are we making sure that they're staying on track with their 9th grade cohort, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th grade. Also implementing some progress monitoring systems, some at-risk student supports, and then still having the college and career advisor as well as working with the counselor to deliver supports. We have had each high school team develop a graduation team, and those members of that team are principal, assistant principal, counselor, registrar, exceptional education representative, as well as college and career advisor and the RTI lead. We held our first summit on January the 27th, in which we brought these teams together and really engaged in some great next steps and some conversations. We have a follow-up meeting next month, and then this summer we're going to dive deeper into the graduation framework, so it's actually kind of a systematic approach throughout the entire school year. So the next thing we want to talk about is acceleration of EPSO work. You know, in education we love to use letters and put them together to describe what we're doing. So EPSO is the early post-secondary opportunity. And as a reminder, one of our Future Ready 2023 goals is that 75% of our graduates will complete at least one advanced course or industry certification exam. This is from the State Department of Education, but it shows you what all is included in an early post-secondary, what all opportunities are there. And so you have local dual credit, dual enrollment, industry certifications, advanced placement, college level examination programs, IB programs, Cambridge, and statewide dual credit. And so when we start to look at, we've really tried to really emphasize with high schools, like, hey, let's really look at how can we expand the opportunities of advanced courses for students, and how can we give them the opportunity to earn EPSOs. And so the red line shows you that 75% is our goal. And we're excited to look at the fact that our 12th grade class right now, as of the first semester, is right there on the cusp of having that 75%, which is very exciting. So it looks like we're meeting that mark, even though it's a you know, a little down the road is our goal, but right now we're really focusing on that. The next slide shows this is enrolled plus earned. So this kind of gives you a picture, because some of our students are in a year-long class and things like that, and so you can see that like 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade really working hard towards trying to meet this goal. Why is it important to earn an EPSO? Well, it's important because the more we can engage students in advanced courses while they're in high school, we know that the likelihood of them advancing on into a post-secondary opportunity, and completing that always increases. So we're excited about that, and excited about what this next year will hold. I want to make a mention about certifications and credentials. And so, as you know, certifications and credentials occur in our career and technical education courses. And really, the CTE department has worked very hard this year and over the past few years to really take a look at pressing our CTE teachers to begin offering more CTE classes. And we are working on developing really a strategic approach to how these episodes roll out. But you'll see there that as of the fall of 2020, we had already surpassed the entire year's goal from last year. And so we're excited to continue that pace as we move on into the second semester. And I would say that, you know, the learning situation that we have had in the first semester did kind of inhibit the ability to continue with these certifications, but our teachers have made some pivots, and I'm excited to continue to press this work forward. A couple of examples of like what industry certification is and some highlights about what's happening in the district. So on the right-hand side, you have Hickson High School. It's a tweet from their very proud principal, Dr. Ziegler, who's just showing that Hickson continues to graduate their certified nursing assistant students, and they're able to pass that. And I'll just tell you that especially locally here in the Chattanooga area, and really nationally, now more than ever, the need for people to engage in the health science industry is pretty huge. And from what we've heard from our business colleagues is that CNAs are always needed. And so a student can earn a CNA and then move into employment. And really that's great because that employment could start now, it could start right when they graduate, or when they go off to college. I mean, pretty much every college is going to have a hospital that's near it that's going to need the use of a CNA. So the Hickson program has been really historically successful. What's exciting is that on the left-hand side, a little caption of a news story there, but we launched with UTC and Siskin Hospital the opportunity to do the Certified Nursing Assistant program at the Howard School. And so students that are in the health science program have the opportunity their senior year to work towards earning that CNA certification. So that's just kind of a highlight example of a certification. I want to talk about Future Ready Institutes. Just as a reminder, we're in our third year, even though it may seem like we've been doing this for a long time. This is the third year. And so we have juniors, sophomores, and freshmen that have been working through our institutes. I placed this up there. You've seen this before every time I've actually addressed you, but I just wanted to re-emphasize like what our institute approach is. And so these students are engaged in high school level courses, the same courses that their peers are taking, working towards the same diploma that all of our high school students are earning, but there's just some nuances in that approach. And really, if you look at them, small learning communities is huge, it's key. We accomplish that through cohorting our students and some scheduling measures to allow them to experience career-themed subjects together. Career pathways, so really making sure that the students have a career pathway as they matriculate up 9th through 12th grade. Engaging instruction, and that comes in multiple forms. Engaging instruction comes from project-based learning tasks and problem-based learning tasks, as well as engaging the business community in that instruction. Nothing's better than, I'll take an aside here and say with the engaging instruction, it's one thing when a teacher gives a project for a student to complete, and as a former teacher, I would love to tell you that every time we give a project, they're just jumping up and down, and but sometimes that doesn't happen. But more emphasis and more excitement comes when we engage the business community. So last year I had the opportunity to see the CEO and president of the Children's Hospital judging the health science projects at Howard. There's a whole new emphasis on what you're going to be able to know and do whenever someone who's in the career, in the industry, is there asking you questions. And so the engaging instruction piece is key. Strong business partnerships, and then I've already talked about post-secondary certifications and credentials. I'm going to go through these next 3 slides because this just kind of is a reminder of like where the locations are. The ones in purple are new since the last time I addressed you. We were excited that SIMPA came on board with Eastridge High School and the Institute of Leadership and Public Health. Since the last time we spoke, CHI Memorial Institute came on with Hickson High School. And then as well as there's a new institute there, new for next year. Red Bank High School is adding an institute around social media marketing and sports management. And Sale Creek kicked off their year this year with the Institute of Construction, Engineering, and Design. So we're excited about that. And then also we have 2 international baccalaureate sites that are working with UTC. This shows our just kind of an infographic here around what we're continuing to do. 13 branded partnerships, and you can see continuing to engage individuals and professionals in our advisory boards, as well as when we look at 9th through 11th grade enrollment, about 35% of students in 9th through 11th grade are enrolled in an institute. And then, you know, I spoke earlier about the industry certifications and the pathways. So 29 institutes and 13 high schools. Our enrollment by the numbers, this kind of shows you real quick when we look at our enrollment in 9th through 11th grade, we have 3,468 students that are enrolled. It's about 35% of all 9th through 11th grade students. And 9% of that number were the students that have elected to attend an institute that's outside of their school zone. And I will say, recently, you know, we just had our applications close, and I had a colleague check them today, and we actually had 503 students that indicated interest in moving into a 9th grade institute next year, and there's around 324 seats that are available for that, so we're excited about that. So this, I always want to call out, like, who are those branded partners, those people that are really engaging with us in many ways and getting their expertise around the table, and many great things come out whenever we're able to work with our business partners. Work-based learning, I think, is the next realm that we really have to ramp up. We in the strategic plan, you'll read that there is an aspiration to begin Future Ready Now, which is the opportunity to have more work-based learning opportunities for students. We have them happening in many places. You're familiar with Gestamp, you've heard about that, but in the last year, we've actually brought on South Tree, the Legacy Box Academy there, that was in the news a few weeks ago, and then Southern Spear working with a student from Howard. So we're really excited about how can we scale this up so we can continue to allow students to earn and learn at the same time. I wanted to pause just a moment to talk about the micro college pilot, and so I know that it was addressed in the state of the system, but we are working to create a micro college concept in some of our high schools. We're right now engaging with some high schools that may be interested in adding this. What is a micro college? Well, it's a high school campus that allows a student to earn multiple dual enrollment courses. We would have an aspirational goal that a student would have access to anywhere from 15 to 30 college hours by the time they graduate from high school. And we want to make it a robust partnership with our partner in Chattanooga State. And so giving them the opportunity to really take a look at our high school offerings and do some audits around what are we currently doing in our programs of study in all subject areas, and then really helping us to improve the ability for students to move on and be successful in dual enrollment courses. I wanted to remind you just real quick of our scholarship dollars. So last year, even in the midst of our seniors being at home from March through the end of the year, we were able to exceed our scholarship dollars last year. And I'll give a big shout out to our college and career advisors that work at the school level. Many of them were able to engage throughout the summer and giving students the opportunity to get those last few things in to move on and be successful in college. And so I know I've talked extremely fast, but I want to pause here and just give an opportunity for any questions.
Mr. Perez?
When you are deciding a Future Ready Institute, what's kind of the process as to what kind of Future Ready Institute you're looking for and where particularly it would fit?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So how do we select institutes? Well, number one, we want to make sure that we're working with the principal. And so the leadership of the school, we work with them. Oftentimes, the creation of a new institute does occur with collaboration with the principal, and the principal takes a look and wants to add a program. When we see that we want to add a program, we always want to emphasize where are the careers that are currently, what would be the programs that are currently leading to career options whenever they graduate from high school. And so we have to look at our CTE teachers and what programs are there at that school. Do they currently have a career and technical education program there? If not, what adjustments do we need to make? I'll say one thing that's happened in the past 3 years by one of my colleagues, John Maynard, who's the director of CTE. He's done a great job of really taking a look at our CTE programs and really trying to build up opportunities at the school so the student can complete 9th through 12th grade and have an opportunity to do all of that. And then at that point, we begin to work. Obviously, we work with our partners in the area Chamber of Commerce to say, hey, we have an institute that's wanting to be developed in this particular school. What are your initial thoughts? And we get their feedback and make adjustments. And so that's really the process. We start pretty early. So typically in the fall of the year is when we start to inquire with schools, hey, is there an opportunity to add an institute? And then it's a process we start to work through. And the last thing I'll say, it always has to align with a Tennessee CTE pathway of study. And so that kind of guides like what that coursework looks like 9th through 12th grade.
Mr. Smith?
Blake, where are we in terms of transportation?
Yeah.
Getting kids across town. I've always said we're running the magnet schools all over town,
Mm-hmm.
but we hadn't treated the Future Ready kids equally. So
Sure.
where are we in that conversation?
I'm excited I have a great answer for you, Joe, because I anticipated that. And so I'll say last year, the Institute department, Future Ready Institute colleagues, worked with Dr. Robertson and the transportation department to tackle this issue. And so we took a look at where are we currently, what are the trends right now of students that are wanting to move to an institute that's out of their zone. And so then over the summer, Dr. Robertson's department stood up a hub that actually took place in the STEM school parking lot, where students had the opportunity to take their zone transportation to STEM and then hop on a transfer bus and ride to the institute of choice, okay? So we were able to stand that up. I think that for every, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Robertson, I think ridership is down this year just because of the pandemic and where we are. And so, and the other thing that I would say about when we look at transportation, we added the transportation last year after students had selected that they were going to go to an institute out of their school zone. And so many of the students already had developed what was going to be their mode of transportation already. So I would think that an increase in some of our applications could be due to the fact that students now know, hey, there are some opportunities for transportation. And what we will do is we'll continue to monitor when we get to the school year after students have selected and we know what students are going to be moving to a different school. We will work to communicate, hey, this is an option, will you need it? And then obviously work with Dr. Robertson and making sure that we're being efficient and effective in our transportation. Yeah.
Mrs. Robinson?
Thanks, Blake, for a really great presentation. I have a couple questions about the 87% graduation rate. I was just kind of curious, are you, I hate to like ask anything that feels negative, but I do want to better understand that 13% that isn't graduating, or that we've, that we think we're kind of plateauing at. Do we have a sense of the schools that in the past that have not had strong graduation rates? Are we seeing a shift in those schools? That's one of my questions. The second is, are we seeing that 13% move on to get their GED? Or if they get their GED, would they be a part of the 87%? So I'm thinking about like, okay, if you're not graduating, you're part of this 13%, what happens next? What kind of tracking are we doing to figure out what's happening next with them? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I've seen Dr. Towns is eliminated, so.
So your first question about does a GED count? No, it doesn't. So
Okay.
this grad rate requirements are federal.
Okay.
So everybody across the United States has the same guidance in terms of who counts in your denominator, which is the cohort, which really determines this percentage, right? Many of the folks that we have that are quote unquote counted as non-graduates, some of it is that they left us and transferred after their freshman year. We are responsible.
Oh, that's right. We
for
tracked them from
knowing,
ninth forward.
right,
Yep,
that they
forgot about that.
transferred to another school, and that's the only way we get to remove them from our cohort. So I will tell you that some of these may simply be about, we don't know, we didn't collect the information, we didn't have the correct documentation. There are some students with special needs, that if they graduate in an occupational diploma, that does not count in the federal graduation rate. There are students who, if it takes them beyond the 4 years and a summer, they will not count in this federal graduation rate. So for us, that once a student is beyond compulsory attendance, we don't typically tend to track what's happening to them. We refer them to an adult learning center, which is typically run by Chat State or Department of Labor in other counties. So that's where we are. I think, Blake should talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing around the really monitoring graduation rate and making sure that we keep kids on track. But some of it is just making sure we do our record keeping.
Yeah, and I always forget about the fact that once you enter ninth grade, you're tracked with us the whole time, no matter what. Like, your parents may move to another community and you go with them, but you're still part of our numbers. And yeah, I think we've got to figure out how to talk about that more too. But and then summer graduations, like we had a summer graduation in 2020. Okay, great. Okay, I didn't know if maybe like with COVID, if we had any interruption because of that. So, okay. My only other question for you, Blake, is the micro colleges are super cool. Are we targeting specific schools for that, or are we trying to put them in every high school?
I think what we're trying to do right now is really work with a small set, so 3 to 5.
Okay.
And like I said, we have delivered the information to principals and then asked for those who would say, hey, I'm interested in this. I'm excited about the principals. We're in a process now of them. They had a meeting last week, and then they're huddling as a school group to determine, is this something that we want to consider? I think that after we work through this pilot, what I didn't mention was part of the pilot includes where we have a partnership with Chattanooga State. And there are some specific things that we have asked for, and they've been great to give us a response, and we're working with them on what that would be like. Things like providing an individual that comes to those campuses, works with those teachers, gives teachers the opportunity to ask questions, looks at the rigor of what we're doing in schools, also gives the opportunity for students to have a smoother transition from micro college into the university or where they're going. And so I think that it's definitely scalable, but we want to make sure that we take a look at a smaller group and then start to move forward. And I'll mention, Dr. Towns mentioned what we're doing on the graduation framework. So the graduation framework developed by some individuals, community superintendents, school counseling, SEL, things like that, college and career advising. What it does is we're actually dipping down into making sure that handoff between 8th grade and 9th grade is secure, and then really trying to have a better rhythm of business on making sure that we're keeping track of where students are. So.
With the micro colleges, would a ninth grader be able to start college courses?
So we're not looking at 9th graders starting college courses. We think that's a little too early. But we are anticipating 10th grade students having the opportunity to do that. One great thing that happened this past year, and my understanding is that TBR is really looking at this in the future, is to enroll in a dual enrollment class, there's some testing barriers that you have to meet around ACT or Accuplacer or things like that. But there's some pilot work happening where they're waiving that test and going more on GPA. And so we're excited because we know some of our students may not be great test takers, but they have the grit and determination to be able to complete the course. And so I think that's another exciting part of micro college.
Okay, I just have one more question, I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah.
I saw an email recently that went out to parents within the district that there were about 5,800 families that applied for choice schools. Do our Future Ready schools count in that choice school?
We do put them in the application for ease of use for the parent,
Okay.
because we want to make sure that the parent's not going to, in the first year, that we did have separate applications. Now we have one joint application that is the school choice,
Yeah.
runs on the same timeline.
Yep.
And so yeah, they are included in that.
That's really exciting. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yeah, hey Blake.
Hey.
I was just wondering, where does Sequoia fit in this? The Future Ready Institute, we never talk about that, and I know that a lot of their programs have been cut, and I see a lot of the programs going to other schools. Do we look at putting more programs at Sequoia? I mean, we have a great facility up there, but it's never mentioned when you talk about Future Ready Institute, and I just wonder where they fit in this.
Yeah, so I'll say a few things, and then I think Dr. Parker may want to add to it. Sequoia, great facility, right? I mean, has multiple opportunities there. What we're doing with Sequoia, and we began this year, actually last year we began, and we're moving forward, is we're working very closely with TCAT, the Tennessee College of Applied Technology here at Chattanooga State. And they are working to provide the opportunity for our students to really be engaged and earn 2 of their 3 TCAT semesters while they're at Sequoia. And I know that, Dr. Mayan is doing a great job and really working to cast a vision there at Sequoia. And Dr. Parker, Dr. Harper, all of us continue to work with Sequoia. I don't know, Dr. Parker, if there's anything you want to add there.
I want to just say that we haven't cut any programs, at least since I've been working with Sequoia. Now, we've struggled with our enrollment, but we have offered half-day programming. What now?
Because you cut the programs, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, we've offered half-day programs, so kids from surrounding schools, we bus kids from all across the county, but then we also have open half-day seats for kids as well. But I will say this, Amy Mahan has a vision for what she would like to see transpire there as far as really offering the TCAT opportunities for our students. And so she's even working on how we accelerate even the academic programs and the so math and construction coming together. We worked with her actually yesterday on the vision that the entire staff has built out, and even looking at the programs that are the strongest, like welding. We have kids who want to be in the welding and machining program, and making sure that they have the ability to access the programs there. But Ms. Mahan has really caught on to the vision about TCAT and what that means for students as they exit with just one semester basically left, and they will have an apprentice degree. So I think great things are still in store.
They were included in these numbers because to me that's like a Future Ready type, this may not be an institute, but I just wonder where it fit into all of this.
They've always been somewhat of a special program, and we're trying to market them a little bit differently as an early college option for students. So as we move forward with what goes on there, it will be really more of like a TCAT academy, which is all future ready, to be quite frank, but it will be aligned with more of the TCAT exit options for students. Which is very different from I shouldn't say very different, but the TCAT option for our kids there is a very strong alignment to be really close to being finished with your first layer of college, actually.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just wondered where they fit in this. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Perez? Okay, Mrs. Hill.
Thank you.
Blake. I appreciate what you're doing for our students. Thank you very much. Regarding the Future Ready choice applications, I might be a little off on my numbers. You said 594 people applied, and we have 324 seats. Help me understand how many seats per grade band we have. So in ninth grade, how many potential seats do we have?
So I don't have that number. Let me put a little color around the numbers, if that's okay. So 503 applicants. What that means is 503 students indicated that they were interested in an institute. Some of those students could have made an institute their first choice. Some of them could have made it a second choice or a third choice behind another magnet school or another choice option. So I think that's important to note there. Because there will be some students that end up taking a magnet school option instead of taking this. The way that we determine like how many seats are available is it is based on working with the school principal. So we look at the ninth grade incoming class, and we talk with the principal about what is a good cohort size for that you're able to meet using your staffing. And so, you know, most of the time it stays around numbers like 25, 50, 75, 100. Every school, depending on the size, has a different capacity that they can take students from out of zone. From that, our procedures say that they must hold 25% of those seats open for students that are out of zone. And so that's how that works. We hold 25 seats open, and then when students apply, we take a look. Those seats are filled. We have students that are placed on a waiting list, and then as the summer continues, students may select another one, decide they don't want to move, and so we stay in communication with that group. The other thing is that 10th grade is really the last grade that we could take a student to move into an institute. And the reason why is because the CTE pathways are very specific around this, like, for example, in welding, you would take principles of manufacturing as your first course, and then you take welding 1, welding 2, and then you may do a practicum. And so we got to make sure that like they have enough time to complete that experience. And so that's the reason why what will happen is we will contact principals and talk to them about, hey, do you have seats available for 10th grade? Because things happen. Students get into an institute in 9th grade and decide, hey, I may not want to be a part of that. And then that opens up a seat for 10th grade. And remember, too, that they fill them with students that are in zone, too. And so students that are in zone, they take up that other set of seats. Depending on the in zone interest and the out of zone interest, some schools have the 25%. Some schools may have, you know, a higher percentage of out of zone students that take some of those seats. It just depends on where the availability is at the school.
Okay. When Marco asked about how we decide where one goes and what it'll be, so much comes back to the school principal. And I know you work closely with the Chamber of Commerce, but I was in a meeting for a board that I'm on, Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, on Wednesday, and when you showed the picture of the students that had gotten their certified nursing assistant certification, it struck a chord for me because I was just looking at those salaries or those wages as part of a presentation about jobs that qualify for affordable housing, meaning that they don't make a living wage and therefore need or would qualify for assistance on housing. And certified nursing assistant right now makes between $11.25 and $14.60 an hour, which if you're an 18-year-old perhaps and you're not living on your own, you don't have, you are still somehow supported by somebody. I can see how that is nice money to have in the way that you describe it. But the actual living wage for Chattanooga, according to the MIT score, is $22.63 for a single person with a child. So for a single adult, perhaps that would be $18 an hour. So when I've just been learning more and more about what jobs are out there versus what jobs we say are out there. You know, in every meeting that we ever have, whenever we talk about Future Ready, we talk about welders. We talk about welders. We talk about healthcare a lot, but a certified nursing assistant makes $11.25 an hour compared to an Aldi part-time sales associate that makes $13.10. And our living wage is $22.63. So I've learned that pipe fitters have 200 more applications every year than they have jobs. I've learned that they have hundreds of people that apply for electrician school, and they take about 20. So I think we've got to be really real to ourselves when we talk about technical education for what jobs are truly available in quantity that actually can pay our graduates a wage with which they can support themselves. Knowing that right now, only 30% of our adults have anything beyond a high school education. Like what you are doing has the potential to change lives in a major way. So it gives me pause when we say school principals are kind of deciding who gets what, where, when, and how. When, not to belittle the school principal, but that when it's based on, well, these are the resources I have in my building, this is, you know, kind of what I think we could do, it doesn't feel like the future forward way to be making those choices. So I would just ask that over time, as this develops, because it's remarkable what you've accomplished thus far, that we integrate more and more into not even what jobs we need now, but what jobs we need 6 years from now, because those jobs are changing fast. And you know, is it possible for us with our micro college or with a Future Ready to have a student actually prepared to get a job that makes $18 and $20 an hour that is actually available in mass? So it's just something to think about. The other thing that I wonder about, Tiffany was asking about graduation rates, and I'm wondering about, and I've asked about this before, how we can track actual matriculation rates out, like finishing rates out of a secondary program. So that 5-year graduation rate, because I've heard it in the ether many times that yes, there's a way we can do it. But I mean, I'd really like to know, how are our students prepared for what's next? And we would know that much better if we knew 5 years post-grad what they were doing, if they had finished. And if they had, you know, so they started out with the $11.25 an hour certification, but now they're at the $24.50 certification. Dollars an hour, I mean. Can anybody, I would love to have an answer on that.
So for us, we don't have the capacity necessarily to do that. The Tennessee Higher Ed Commission, they run a report, but it lags by 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, what we have the benefit of is the Public Ed Foundation for years now has been tracking students that go into college. So remember, you know, when you think about Future Ready Institutes, yes, there are students that will graduate, whether it's welding, whether it's, you know, in particular when you think about, you know, construction areas, et cetera, where they can go directly into the field and earn a living wage. For a student that gets a certification in the CNA, that's not necessarily where we're hoping they will stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the exposure to them. Many of those students are going on to become actual RNs, or they're going on to become nurse practitioners, or they have an interest in going into you know, the medical field and becoming MDs. And so that it's really about exposing them early and giving them a leg up so that they get a deeper. And the other piece that, and I know Blake didn't get into this as much as well, but I always use the medical example because it's really easy to use as an example. The other benefit of this is there's a level of integration with their core area subject as well, which piques the interest. And so I'll use English and, you know, medicine, or English and construction. If I'm teaching a piece of literacy that's also connected to the career theme, and I'm a student that's passionate about the career theme, I'm much more likely to be able to pull out the central idea, you know, than I am for a piece of text that I'm not interested in at all. So just like Kobe that just left out of here, if he's reading about, you know, which we can do, he's reading about flight instruction or whatever it is, he's much more likely to really be, engaged in the learning that's taking place. So I think you raise a lot of really good points. I think back on high school principalship and, also understand the complexity of staffing and what goes on in a high school. So if you could build it from scratch, you build the way you want to. What we have been doing over the last 3 years, and he mentioned John Maynard, what we have been doing over the last 3 years is trying to streamline coursework based on specifically what you mentioned, where the jobs are, right? So think about two of our Future Ready Institutes that Blue Cross has come alongside us with at Red Bank and at Saudi Daisy, actually. Those two institutes are specifically based on demand. And so, when you think about the high-end jobs that are coming, that are needful in our community, it's us working with Blue saying, hey, this is something that we really, really need. They really, really need, and it's taken off. The same kind of with EPB, cybersecurity realm, and Tyner's work, and working with IT. So I think your point is spot on, and definitely where we want to go. And it is about, and so there's always this conversation, right? There are some things that are learned in home ec that are just foundational to a student being successful, but we got to find other places and spaces to get some of those things so that we can make sure that we're exposing them from a career tech standpoint and where the jobs are. So I think you raise a great point.
Well, please know that this is pressing to do even better. This is that expect excellence hashtag that Brian has taught us all to use. I'm thrilled with what's happening. I'm especially excited about the micro college pilot and really looking forward to where those are going to be. And you can bet this board's going to have a lot of questions about that. As soon as you start telling us the names, we're going to be like, oh yeah, well, we want one, so be ready.
Sure.
I'm sure you're thinking that way.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And micro college wise, I want to, so we're clear on this, it is going to be driven by principal interest because leadership matters. And it's much different when central office mandates versus me buying in. And I think a large part of what made Future Ready Institute successful is making it successful is, when we shared it with principals, it was, hey, here's an idea, right? A thought. How do you take the next step? And so the same approach with the micro colleges, which work in concert with it. Here's an idea. Now you take it back, and how you going to bring it to life? So absolutely, there are some schools that we're excited about being interested in it.
And I'll say, I shortened the answer, but if we look at it, it's not, leadership matters, but it's not a blanket principal come and says, hey, I'm going to do this, and it's okay. There's lots of questions that go into it. There's many iterations that they bring, and it's, no, I don't think we're quite there yet. Let's go back. And to Dr. Johnson's point, exactly, we want to make sure that we're providing an opportunity. We've always said that student that may be entering 9th grade, that the flicker of education has burnt out, if we can capture them and then they graduate on time and have a certification, then that's a lot better than dropping out or graduating and going to work for much less. The other thing that we learn is there's so much cyclical work happening now in adult education, as you probably well know, where I enter in at this level, but then I stay and I attend some additional trainings. And Erlanger's a great example of a place that does this. You enter in, you take some trainings, and then you're on the next step, the next step, the next step. And so I think it's important to mention that as well. But yeah, great points, and I appreciate the comment. Micro college schools that have a Future Ready Institute, they'll be able to collaborate. So it's not an either or. It's an opportunity for a student that's in a Future Ready Institute and they have a micro college. Hey, let's add some dual enrollment college classes around the health science field. Let's add some of those around the computer science field. So
Terrific.
working together.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you. And we appreciate very much, Blake, what you're doing. I mean, I cannot tell you how much. And I'd like to reiterate what Dr. Johnson said. My sisters are both nurses, a nurse practitioner, and some of the best nurses they've started out as CNAs. And Linda Pendergrass, some of the folks may know, did Hickson for many, many years. And she put out a lot of RNs, a lot of x-ray technicians, and several doctors. So quite often, that's a great entry level. And Ms. Hill's point's very well taken. If they stop there, that definitely, you're right, that would not be sufficient for lifestyle, but so many of them have gone on and doing well. And my sisters have said the young ladies and gentlemen that have gone through that program have professionally have done real well. I agree with what my colleague, Ms. Thurman, said about Sequoia do a great job. I'd like to also say that Harrison Bay has done a fabulous job. I think, are we still needing a welding teacher there?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
if anyone of you know a welding person that would like to work well with kids, we'd use that. But I've been on their advisory board, and they do a fabulous job with their partners. I mean, it's just absolutely. I've got a couple of real quick questions. When Coach Wingate was playing baseball at Tyner Junior High, we had a great partnership with where he works now at Chattanooga State 25 years ago. My daughter's got 30, 35, almost 40 hours, one of them, in conjunction with Chattanooga State 25 years ago. Did we drop out and are just now coming back, or have we continued that? They've been a great partner for a quarter of a century.
Yes, we have continued to have a relationship with Chattanooga State. So we have many schools that have dual enrollment courses that work with Chattanooga State. So that's never stopped.
Well, I've taught 3 AP courses, and they're really good. They're really good for kids. But I'll tell you, the joint enrollment carries quality points and quantity points, and they have the opportunity. Do they still have the opportunity for our teachers that have the credentials to teach that
Yes.
within the high school? And that's a great service, as well as having some of the Chat State professors come in. I am all for that. I think you're doing a wonderful job there. So any differences, major differences, other than maybe more collaboration than we used to do?
You know, I think that what we're trying to accomplish with micro college, the difference is that really how do we bolster, the dual enrollment program at a particular school? And so right now, there is, we have to look with Chattanooga State, and we look and see what teachers at our school have the feasibility to be able to teach the course. Is there feasibility for you to deliver the course to us? And then, we kind of work through there. I think one of the key things about the micro college that I get excited about is it's a robust partnership. It's building out to say, if you're a student there, you're going to walk out with 15 to 30 hours, okay? I think that's important. Right now, it's very much on, the individual student, and what we need to do is we have to build a systematic approach to be able to make sure these students have that opportunity to do that. The next thing that's, I think, pretty critical is asking them to come alongside us and look at what's happening in our lower level classes. And when I say lower level, I don't mean like lower level, I mean like 10th and 9th grade. So if we want a student, we have to emphasize, we emphasize enrollment. Now we really have to bolster achievement too, and looking at students actually graduating with the credit. How do we do that? Well, that means that we need the Composition 1 teacher at the collegiate level to come in and look at what we're teaching in 10th grade and 9th grade, and then make recommendations about the rigor. Because the way that you increase the amount of students that are completers, not just matriculate to college, but are completers, is it's got to be increased rigor while they're in high school. And so that's what we want to do. The other thing too, I think, that we're trying to attract with micro colleges, it's going to be on the school to increase the subgroup participation in dual enrollment classes. And so what that means is there are some students that have historically taken dual enrollment without any supports. But there are some students that could really benefit and be successful in a dual enrollment class, but they may need just a little bit more support. And so we want to stand that up too.
I had one other little question in here. When my daughters took it, I paid for it. Is that still the case? What about our students? Do they have financial assistance? Do they have, I know teachers' children can get a 25% discount through the state. They used to, I don't know if they still can or not. But how about our young people that have the capability, they have the desire, but they don't have the financial means?
So there are dual enrollment credit grants that are offered through the state where students have the opportunity to have free courses. What we're investigating, or to be honest with you, and it would cost, but is there a way that we can, instead of paying per student, we can work with a higher ed institution and say, hey, what would it cost for this section? What would that look like? And then going back and saying, how could we cover that? Especially in 10th grade, that's something that we'll have to look at, because dual enrollment grants don't start until the junior year. And so we have to investigate that 10th grade portion.
Thank you, sir. I've got something for you before you leave.
Okay, great, thanks.
I will say before we let Mr. Freeman go, one of the things, as far as micro colleges go, and I've had a lot of experience with this because I've worked with a lot of the dual enrollment over the last 5-6 years at Chattanooga State, and actually with a couple of other LEAs, not just Hamilton County. I really would like to challenge us as a board to help the school system, and I don't have the answers. I just think we're going to have to think creatively about how we help the school system create pathways for teachers to gain the proper credentials that they need to teach those courses. I know that there are teachers who are absolutely able to do those things, but because of just the station in life where they find themselves, pretty full days and teaching and the workloads that they already have, how are they going to gain the credentialing that they need to be able to do that? Because it will strain any community college to be able to provide enough faculty, especially in a system this large. You know, if all the high schools have a desire, you know, then, you know, it's awesome to have Composition 1 teachers in high schools. But it's going to be tough for those Comp 1 teachers to teach their fully assigned loads at their colleges and then also get to a high school and do that. And I know just from our perspective, adjuncts are not necessarily as plentiful as they used to be. And so, you know, it may even be an opportunity. I don't know what that looks like or how contractually how that looks, but maybe it's an opportunity for teachers who have the desire to put in the time and energy to be credentialed are also now officially an adjunct, and they're able to, you know, make some, you know, pay on the side as an adjunct for whatever college they're now tied to as they teach in a micro college. So anyway, I just challenge us as we get further down the road with this to think about that, because those are going to be some challenges for a system as large to be able to do. So, thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Thanks.
I will say, you know, 15 to 18 graduate hours in content is that still what's required for most?
It's
adjuncts?
18.
18 now. And they can make pretty good money. They can do it on their planning time, do the planning after school. So a teacher, one of our teachers could make a substantial amount more money.
Well, and in many instances too, if a teacher already has a graduate degree, many colleges who would, where they would take those graduate courses may even offer them another graduate degree without having to complete a thesis. So it's really just taking the coursework, the 6 classes you would need, and then you earn another degree. So, all right, that brings us to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All right, do we have any items we'd like to take a look at?
We need a disclaimer first.
What did I miss? Oh, yeah, sorry. Brand new.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Bennett, do we just need to put it out there for anyone to be able to make that statement? Anyone need to make that statement tonight?
I'll make the statement.
Okay.
I declare that I have a spouse and sisters-in-law who work for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget and policies and calendar may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Dr. Highlander.
I hereby declare that I have a couple of family members, none under my roof, that work for the school system, and any vote I have could affect them, but it will have no impact on my vote. I'll do what's best for the system.
Mrs. Jones.
I declare that I have a brother-in-law who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget policies and today the school calendar may have no effect on my relative's employment, may have an effect, I'm sorry, on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Thank you. Mrs. Robinson.
I declare that I have a mother-in-law who works for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget policies and calendar may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Anyone else? Okay, any items that we'd like to,
No, I need to also declare that I have a relative that works for the school system, that I fully intend to vote for the best interest of the system as a whole.
Thank you. All right. Sorry, new item there. I got ahead of myself. So, we had a motion to approve the agenda, and we also had a second, correct? All right, any items that we'd like to take a look at? All right, Mrs. Ford?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, that brings us down to our administrative business matters. The first item there would be a vote to approve. Okay. We don't have a vote on that. We just need to address that. No.
Grant
The grant application request? Unless we need to speak to that. Okay. Okay.
I think it just has to be approved, so.
We don't have it listed as a vote tonight.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's under consent agenda, isn't it?
I thought it was under
It's-
consent.
It's not on the consent because it requires a match, which is basically personnel that are already in the district, so it had to go on the non-consent
okay.
consent portion.
Okay. All right, so if it's a separate item, and we're not voting on that, how do we need to approach it?
You do review, Ms. Levine, you need approval from the board, correct?
That's correct. My understanding is it has to
Yeah,
be
that-
voted
that-
on.
Per policy, it does need to be approved. For whatever reason, it wasn't listed on the agenda
Okay.
as requiring a vote, but even so, the board can vote on it. So
Okay.
someone would, if it's the pleasure of the board to approve this, someone would need to move to approve.
How is
So-
it listed that it's not listed for a vote? Because I mean, I've looked at it.
Right. It's not. Well, let's just do this.
Maybe that's okay.
Let's have a motion and a second, if so desired, and then if we want to discuss it or have Ms. Levine inform us a little further, we'll do that.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, did you get those, Mrs. Ford? Yes, sir. Mrs. Hill motioned, Mr. McClendon seconded. All right, so, Dr. Highlander, you want to discuss that?
What is the cost of matching funds? What did they give, what did we give? I'm sorry, my phone is
Sorry.
out of commission, I've not been able to look up this and see it ahead of
No,
time, so I
that's okay.
apologize.
It's a federal grant for $500,000 over 5 years, and to provide full-time community schools, coordinators, and other community-related programs in the Midtown schools. So, and the match, from my understanding is, and I was talking to Dr. Stewart about it prior to this meeting, the match, it would mostly be positions that we already have in place that can count as a match. So it wouldn't necessarily mean additional investment on behalf of the district, but just continued investment through like GP, and then also grant funding that we have through like priority schools or Title I schools.
It's throughout the county, right?
Just the Midtown schools.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion on that? Okay,
Let me ask
go
you
ahead,
this
Mr.
quickly.
Perez.
So, am I reading correctly, we requested 2.5 million, but we were granted 500,000?
Oh.
Or it's 500,000 over 5 years equaling 2.5 million?
So you're actually, this vote would be to approve us applying for the
just an
grant.
application.
And so that's, yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't received it yet.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion there? Okay, Mrs. Ford?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, now we will arrive at the administrative business matters again. The approval of those special courses listed for the 21-22 school year. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. McClendon motioned, Mrs. Hill seconded. Any discussion about that item? All right, Ms. Ford?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item would be contract for desk partitions. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that item?
Just, is this gonna be paid for, I guess, with CARES money? That's the motion. Okay, thank you.
We need to follow Ms. Thurman's example, do it for our kids.
Any other discussion on that?
Ahead of my time. Trendsetter.
Did you say that it is out of CARES money?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
CARES
All right, Mrs. Ford.
Yes.
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 Yes. Under board matters, we have those policies that we have previously discussed. Again, tonight is first read. Anyone like the opportunity to discuss any of those at this time? Again, we'll vote on those at our next meeting. All right. That brings us to then proposed calendar for the 21-22 school year. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Mrs. Jones. All right, any discussion on this item?
I
Ms.
just need to
Thurman.
ask a question. These remote days, there are 3 of them. Can I ask why?
I don't mind jumping in and answer. So we had the planning days, the 3 planning days last year, and so just pivoting them to remotes, the same carrying forward thought process. This may be the 3rd year that we're doing this. I know we did it last year, this year, so next year will be the 3rd year that we've provided that additional planning time for teachers.
Additional paying time for teachers, so students will be in class that day, but it'll just be work that they get on and do, not.
Correct. It'll be remote. Correct. That's correct.
All right, anything else?
Aye.
Go ahead, Ms. Seal, sorry.
I have had a request from some constituents to have a release of the survey results from the calendar survey. Usually that kind of stuff is made public and we haven't seen that as a report. Is that something we could just put on the website or? Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? Mrs. Thurman?
Yeah, I'll just say, of course, you know me, I always think school starts way too early in August. Still one of my pet peeves. But anyway, so that's why I won't be voting for it. I just think it starts way too early in August.
All right, any other discussion? All right, Mrs. Ford?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes. Okay, for the first time in a long time, I have some events and announcements here.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, Monday the 22nd, 6 o'clock, there will be a virtual community budget meeting. Thursday the 25th, and that's for the North River Learning Community. Thursday the 25th, so next week, a virtual community budget meeting for the Rock Point Learning Community. Then on Monday, March 15th, will be a budget work session. Also, on Monday, March the 15th, would be our agenda discussion. Thursday, March 18th, would be another budget work session. And then Thursday, the 18th, our board meeting. Any other events or announcements anyone would like to make? You got one, Mrs. Robbins?
Actually, I do, yes. I am going to reach out to each of you about coming to check out the baseball and softball program at Howard High School. They are doing some really great things over there, and I'd love for each of you to spend some time with the baseball coach, John Johnson, and the softball coach, Coach Kilgore. And just, if you have an interest in checking it out and seeing more about what they're doing, I'd love to invite you over there. So look for an email from me.
Okay, anything else?
Chairman Wiggin, and I'll
Yes,
get
sir.
with you in the board. I think the Partnership Network it has or will want to do a joint meeting. It's been about a year since we did one of those, and so I think they reached out. We'll try to work it into one of the meetings. I'll send an email. And we'll figure it out.
All right. Meeting adjourned.